Hey everyone, tonight we're stepping into one of the darkest chapters in history, a time when words could make you disappear, kindness could get you killed, and survival was a silent performance judged by those who never spoke. You're not a hero, you're not a soldier, you don't have powers or plot armor, you're just a person trying to survive the gears of history. Let me know in the comments where you're tuning in from and what time it is for you. It's always surreal seeing people from all over the world come together for these windows into the past. Now, let's do this right. Turn off your lights, lower your screen brightness, turn on a fan or a low hum if you need background noise, like a crackling radio reading wartime news. Oh, and if your screen starts to dim, don't worry, that's on purpose. Blue light from your screen has been scientifically proven to suppress melatonin, the hormone that helps you sleep. Basically, it tricks your brain into thinking it's still daytime. So let the light fade. Let your mind slip into a time when people didn't control the clock. They just clung to life. You've just woken up. Not in your own bed, not in your own city, but in Berlin, 1941. Outside, there are boots on cobblestones. In the air, iron, smoke, and an unspoken fear that everyone knows but no one names. You're here, and every mistake, every glance, every breath could be your last. You open your eyes. There's no alarm, no phone, no snooze button, just a dim grey light leaking through rough curtains, the scent of coal smoke, and the sound of boots rhythmically hitting stone outside. You sit up, head pounding, not from partying, but from a warped bed frame, a pillow like a sack of potatoes, and a creeping sense that something is very wrong. The room isn't yours. The walls aren't yours. The framed poster above the dresser isn't art. It's a man with a square moustache, staring at you like he knows your thoughts. Underneath him, a slogan in bold Gothic font: Ein Volk, ein Reich, ein Führer. One people, one empire, one leader. You look down. Your pajamas are a coarse grey cloth, too long, faintly musty, no tags, no logos, no choices. You step onto the balcony. Berlin greets you. Cold. March. 1941. Buildings stained with coal dust. Red flags fluttering with black symbols. Loudspeakers mounted to streetlights. Droning low news updates in German, like someone eulogizing democracy. You don't catch every word, but you catch enough. You're not supposed to talk, not supposed to ask, not supposed to look confused. Because here, strangers don't exist. Strangers are watched. Strangers are questioned. Strangers disappear. You check the drawer. There's an ID card, a German name, born 1909, occupation, cashier. The photo looks like you. Mostly, you're not sure if this is a dream, time travel, or a twisted simulation. But the fear, that's real. You head outside. No one smiles. No one greets you. Women walk by in heavy coats, clutching baskets of coarse bread. A boy stops at a bulletin board. You glance over his shoulder. The board is covered in announcements. List of punished traitorous citizens. Ration stamp schedules. Mandatory Hitler Youth registration notices. Every sentence screams the same thing. Don't be different. Don't ask questions. Don't be seen. You're hungry, but the bakery line wraps around the corner. A man coughs behind you, not from the cold, but because you're standing wrong. You fix your posture, eyes down. Don't react. Don't speak. Non-existence is the safest way to exist. You look up. 3 men in black leather coats step out of a Volkswagen nearby. One opens his jacket to reveal a skull insignia, SS. Your chest tightens. You turn away. But then, a voice calls out behind you, "Papier, bitte." Papers, please. You've been awake less than an hour. You haven't said a word, and someone already wants to know who you are, where you're from, and why you're standing there. Welcome to Nazi Germany. Your stomach turns to stone. The three men are walking toward you, leather coats creaking with each step, boots clicking in perfect rhythm. Their faces unreadable, eyes sharp, scanning, rehearsed. You don't move. You don't blink. You don't breathe unless told. Papier. Bitter, one says again. The tone isn't hostile. It doesn't need to be. It's bureaucratic, surgical, cold. You fumble for your ID. It's in your coat. Somewhere. Right pocket. No. Left. Your fingers don't feel like yours. They're stiff, sweaty, clumsy. You pull it out. The man takes it without a word. Another steps beside him, chewing a toothpick, watching you, not like a threat, more like an inconsistency, a math problem, a test answer that's almost right but not quite. They scan your card, your photo, your name, your occupation, your date of birth. It says cashier, but your hands don't look like they've handled coin trays. They look too clean, too unsure. Your posture, a little too straight for someone who's worked 12-hour shifts behind a counter. Where do you work? One of them asks. It's a simple question. You have a name. You have a city. But do you have a street? A supervisor? A believable accent? You pause, too long, near Alexanderplatz. You say, safe, vague, real enough to not sound fake, fake enough to not be checked on the spot. He raises an eyebrow. Which store? Another pause. The wrong kind. You blink. Once. Twice. Then, Frau Müller's. It's a small shop, near the tram station. It's a name, a place, a lifeline. The man looks at the card again, passes it to the second. They don't nod. They don't whisper. They just stand, letting the silence press down like a boot to the chest. And then comes the second blow. You're not registered with the Arbeitsfront, the German Labour Front, the state-run replacement for trade unions. Every worker is supposed to be registered, no exceptions, unless you're new, or hiding, or lying. You blink again. It must be a mistake. He looks up, slowly. Mistakes, he says, are how people disappear. The toothpick man snorts, just once, like someone amused at a dumb answer. You don't speak. You don't move. You just wait for the verdict, the nod, the order. A boy rides by on a bicycle. A whistle blows in the distance. The world continues. But your lungs are stuck in 1941, in this moment, in this freeze frame of absolute uncertainty. Finally, the man hands back your card. This time, he says, you're lucky. You almost collapse from relief. Almost. But you don't. Because collapsing would make a scene, and making a scene is a question, and questions are dangerous. They walk away, boots thumping, leather swaying. You're left alone, but not unmarked. You've just survived your first inspection. Barely, and all it took was the right name, the right lie, the right pause, and a bit of luck. But in Nazi Germany, luck has an expiration date. You're not sure when you stopped speaking. Maybe it was after the SS asked for your papers. Maybe it was watching them walk away, their boots scraping like erasers on a chalkboard of your fate. Maybe it was the realization that, in this place, words are weapons and not yours. You walk, quietly, past a cafe with drawn curtains, past a newsstand with identical headlines. The paper today says, "Enemy within exposed. Glorious purge continues." Underneath, a line in red, "Speak cautiously. Listen always." You step into a line outside a butcher shop. 2 people behind you, 3 in front. No one talks. Not about the weather. Not about politics. Not about the ration cuts. A woman coughs. No one says bless you. That would be friendly, familiar, dangerous. You're not in a city. You're in a performance, and everyone is playing a role they're terrified to forget. A man ahead mutters something under his breath. A grumble, not even a sentence. The woman beside him turns, looks. He notices, lowers his eyes, tightens his lips. She doesn't say anything. Not yet. But when she steps out of line 5 minutes later, you watch her turn toward a nearby booth marked Volksmeldung Citizen Reports. She walks in, calm, efficient, routine. You remember a phrase now, every ear is a government ear. Because it is. Kids report parents, neighbours report neighbours, sometimes out of fear, sometimes for food stamps, sometimes because they can. You pass a wall plastered with posters. One shows a smiling blonde boy pointing to a shadowy figure with red text. Mutter sagt, sag die Wahrheit. Mum says, tell the truth. Another, finde hören mit. Enemies are listening. And the worst part? You don't know what the wrong words even are. Because the line moves every day. Today, saying you're tired could mean you lack enthusiasm for the Reich. Tomorrow, asking for extra meat could mean you think you're above the rules. Yesterday, mentioning a Jewish neighbour meant nothing. Today, it's enough to vanish. You reach the front of the line. The butcher gives you 2 pieces of grey meat and a glance that lasts half a second too long. You nod. Danke. You say, just that. But the second you hear yourself, you panic. Was your accent off? Was your voice too casual? Too foreign? You leave. Swiftly. Not too fast. Don't run. Running draws eyes. Eyes ask questions. You pass a group of boys in uniform, Hitlerjugend, laughing, kicking a can, their red armbands glaring against grey coats. One of them shouts something at a man walking past. You don't hear the words, but you see the man flinch, bow his head, keep walking. You do the same. Later, in your room, you practice not speaking. You mouth syllables, test your German, calibrate your vowels, repeat, yes, sir, of course, I didn't see anything, and then silence. Because the safest thing to say is nothing at all. Your stomach makes a noise that's no longer a growl, it's a complaint, a protest, a whimper. You haven't eaten in hours, a day. Time bends when hunger leads. On the table, a ration book, brown, creased, with a corner torn off. Each page holds promise, in theory. But ration stamps aren't food. They're permission to buy it, if there's any left. You flip to the meat section. Stamps for this week. 2. That's supposed to be 100 grams of meat product. Not meat. Meat adjacent. Meat inspired. Meat that has seen meat. You head outside. The line forms before dawn now, at the bakery, at the butcher, at the dairy cart that might have a single litre of sour milk by noon. Your first stop is the bread kiosk. A woman with arms like rolling pins guards a tray of greyish loaves. Last 2, she barks. You step forward, ration card in hand. She grabs one, weighs it, sighs. This one's too heavy, she says, slicing a chunk off and tossing it in a bin marked animal use. You don't ask what animal, you just nod. She stamps your card with a blunt tool that leaves a dent through the next 2 pages. You bite the bread. It's dense, bitter, more sponge than loaf, tastes like ash and excuses. Still, it's food. Technically, at home your meal is a slice of bread, a smear of turnip paste, half a radish that died screaming. You chew in silence and your jaw hurts, not from overuse, but because this bread fights back. It's not soft, it resists. You drink water, just water, no tea, no sugar. Both are luxuries now, hoarded, black-marketed. rumoured to exist in party houses or officer gatherings. You've never seen one. You're not meant to. You hear footsteps in the hall, a knock, then a whisper. It's your upstairs neighbour. She offers a trade, a spoonful of goose fat for a candle stub. You agree instantly. In this world, calories are currency and fat is gold. You dip your bread in it. It's salty, greasy. It tastes like memory, like joy, like something your mouth forgot was possible. You almost cry, but tears waste salt. Later, at the market, you pass a man selling sausages. You look closer. It's bread, rolled in lard, dyed pink. He sees you hesitate. Meat substitute, he says. You ask, from what? He smiles. Don't ask. Chew fast. Children have learned to lie about hunger. Did you eat today? Yes. Was it good? Mama says if I chew longer, it fills me more. You see them in alleys, sucking marrow from chicken bones, licking soup wrappers. One girl eats a boiled bootlace like licorice. It smells like despair. It tastes like Berlin. You get home, sit, count your remaining stamps, 3 for bread, 1 for oil, 0 for coffee. You're not sure which hurts more, the hunger, or knowing tomorrow it'll be worse. But you chew the last bite slowly, make it last, because there is no later. In Nazi Germany, food isn't fuel, it's hope, measured, stamped, taxed, then denied. And when it's gone, so are you. You used to believe in small talk. Not anymore. Now, every word you say might be the last safe one, because in Nazi Germany, conversation isn't communication, it's confession. It starts small. You pass your neighbour on the stairs. Herr Lang, mild-mannered, always nods one day. He doesn't. No smile, no nod, just a pause, a flicker, a tick in the eye. You feel it. You feel it. And you wonder, did he hear something? Did I say something? Or worse, did someone else say something about me? At work, or what passes for work now? Your colleague Marta offers you a cigarette. You decline. She laughs. Come on. Everyone needs something to calm the nerves. You hesitate, then sure, just trying to make them last. The next morning, she's gone. Desk empty. Chair turned just so. Mug still warm. No word. No Marta. You check your pockets for your ID, just in case someone asks what you said. Your neighbour Frau Klein used to complain about ration cuts. Loudly, boldly, even with strangers. Now, she hosts knitting circles, quiet ones, where no one actually knits. People file in, talk softly, leave quickly. You ask once if you can join. She smiles, the tight kind. You're not from here, are you? You shake your head, smile back, and never ask again. One evening you get a letter, no return address, no signature. Just one line, the walls remember. You burn it, then wash your hands. Twice. The Reich has a name for this. Volksgemeinschaft. People's community. It means everyone watches everyone. And not in secret, they're proud of it. There are contests. For most vigilant citizen. Prizes. For identifying the most un-German behaviour. Sometimes it's theatre. Sometimes it's lethal. You start noticing things. The landlady never throws away her garbage. She checks it first. The man who sharpens knives on the corner has a folder of names. Children play a new game. Guess who's a traitor? They're good at it. At night, you rehearse conversations. Not what to say, what not to say. No jokes, no opinions, no what-ifs. You memorize 3 responses. I hadn't heard that. I wouldn't know. Better not to talk. One day, you return home to find your window open. Just a crack. Nothing missing, nothing moved. But the bread is stale. You never left the window open. In Nazi Germany, trust is a crime. So you stop trusting, or you stop talking, and slowly, without realizing, you stop being, you're almost asleep. Almost. Then it starts. A whine, low and steady, crawling up your spine, the siren. It begins like a headache and ends like a scream. By the time it reaches full pitch, you're already moving. You grab your ration card, your coat, and the tiny bag with a crust of bread and 2 hard candies. You don't brush your teeth. You don't check the stove. You don't say goodbye. Because there might not be a later. You run outside. The street isn't chaos. It's choreography. People file out of buildings like blood through capillaries, silent and practiced. No one screams, no one pushes. They've done this too many times. The bomb shelter is 3 blocks away. It used to be a wine cellar. Now it smells like regret and mildew. Inside, benches, blankets, and breath. Thick, anxious, recycled breath. You find a spot between a pensioner and a girl holding a doll with no eyes. No one talks. Talking wastes oxygen. Then, the sound. Not the sirens, they've stopped. What comes next is worse. The sky groans. A mechanical buzz, heavy with intent. Then, boom. The ceiling shakes, dust falls, the doll loses its arm, no one blinks. Boom, another, closer. You count the seconds between each blast like prayers. 1, 2, boom. They're getting closer. Someone hums, off-key, just 3 notes, over and over, a lullaby for people who've outlived comfort. Someone else vomits into a bucket. No one says anything, because we all know, if the bomb has your name, it finds you. You hear a collapse somewhere above. The pensioner mutters a word you don't catch. The girl hugs her armless doll. You think of home, not this home, the one with lights, with heat, with future plans. You blink hard. You can't cry here. It burns oxygen. Eventually the silence comes. Not peace, just a pause. The siren returns, in reverse, descending instead of rising. A funeral in reverse. People exhale. You file out. The street is gone. Part of it. At least. A building collapsed into itself like it gave up. You recognize it. It was the bakery. The one with the line. The one with the woman who cut your bread and didn't smile. She's gone. You don't speak. No one does. You step over rubble, over ash, over the memory of butter that once was. You return to your bed. Lie down. Close your eyes. Try to sleep, knowing the sirens will return. And next time, your name might be on the bomb. You wake up to shouting. Not the panicked kind, not like sirens. It's synchronized, rhythmic, controlled. Children chanting. You peek out your window. A line of boys in brown uniforms marches past. Armbands red. Steps perfectly aligned. One of them can't be more than 6. You follow them. From a distance. Past the bakery ruins. Past the street where you were questioned. They turn into a school. It used to be a church. Now, the crucifix is gone. Replaced by a photo of a man whose mustache seems smaller every time you see it, but whose shadow grows. You sneak in through a side hallway, find a broom closet with a crack door. You watch. There are no pencils, no math drills. The lesson today is Germany, past, present, and forever. The teacher holds a ruler in one hand and a propaganda poster in the other. Children raise their hands not to ask questions, but to swear oaths. One boy hesitates, his hand wavers. The teacher notices. There's no punishment, no yelling. Just his name, written in a small notebook on her desk. You know what that means. Later they learn biology, except it isn't biology, it's racial science. Charts showing pure and impure skulls, measurements, maps, drawings of noses. A girl asks a question, a real one. The room freezes. The teacher smiles coldly. You'll learn not to ask that again. There are no books with ideas, only one with rules. It's small, red, stamped with a swastika. Every child has one. One boy clutches his like a holy text. You watch them leave for recess. They don't run, they march to the yard. Two boys recite yesterday's headlines like gospel. Another mimics a speech, hand raised, voice deepened, like a parody. Except no one laughs. You see it now. This isn't a school, it's a factory. And the product isn't knowledge, it's certainty. At lunch, they don't get milk, they get songs, chanted, repeated, drilled, verses about enemies, about duty, about pride. They sing in unison and you shiver, because it sounds like war. With a melody, you leave before the final bell, back to your flat, to your silence, and you realize they won't need to jail the next generation. They've already built their walls inside their minds. You used to think childhood was made of scraped knees and bedtime stories. Not here. Here, childhood wears a uniform. You see them again the next morning. Boys in brown, girls in navy, armbands, banners, polished boots. Not a laugh among them. They line up in front of a banner that reads Blut und Ehre, blood and honor, and somehow they say it like a promise. You follow the boys to a field behind the school. No soccer, no tag, no imagination. Today's lesson is disassembly and reassembly of a rifle. The instructor, barely out of his teens, yells names and times. One boy breaks 30 seconds. He gets a pat on the back. Another fumbles. He gets looked at. You know the kind of look. Nearby, girls carry stretchers and practice bandaging each other. Not dolls and not dances, tourniquets, tour drills, tourniquet tests. One girl wraps gauze with surgeon's precision. She's 9. You hear a whistle. Everyone freezes. The instructor steps forward and shouts, "Who is your Führer?" 50 voices in perfect unison. Adolf Hitler. Again, louder. Adolf Hitler. Your chest tightens, not from fear, from certainty. Because that's what they're teaching. Certainty. Absolute. Blinding. Irreversible loyalty. Later, the boys run drills. Not for fitness, for obedience. Crawl under wire, stand when ordered, strike when commanded. One boy hesitates before a jump. The instructor yells, "Would you hesitate for your Führer?" The boy jumps, twists his ankle, doesn't cry. At dusk, they sing. Not lullabies, not folk songs. Marching anthems about loyalty, betrayal, purity, sacrifice. The rhythm makes them forget the words, but not the feelings. One boy stumbles while marching. Another boy reports it, instantly. The instructor nods, makes a note. No punishment today, just a record. Because betrayal isn't personal, it's patriotic. You remember seeing them smile once, at a rally, when someone burned a book, or when a speech ended with fireworks. The smile wasn't joy, it was pride. That's worse. You go home, you close your door, you try to forget what you saw, but you can't, because someday, when they're older, when the war demands more bodies, they won't hesitate. They'll load rifles, drive tanks, press triggers, and they'll do it believing they're right. Because childhood here doesn't end in adolescence. It ends in obedience. Survival isn't legal here. You learn this the hard way. It starts with butter. You haven't seen real butter in weeks. Then, a whisper. There's a man, near the tram depot. Red scarf. Doesn't ask questions. That's all it takes. You find him. He doesn't speak. He nods once. You hand over 2 ration cards and a button from your coat. He hands back a tin, not labelled. Inside, maybe butter, maybe lard, maybe hope. You don't ask, you spread it. You eat, you don't die. Good trade. Word spreads, not from mouths, but eyes. People start noticing. The woman in 3B has oranges. The tailor downstairs suddenly has socks. You have energy, and crumbs, and suspicion, because everything comes with a price. The market doesn't have stalls, it has shadows. No signs are just code. Got any radio parts means I need news. Looking for brown thread means I have coffee. Nice weather, huh? Means shut up. You trade old buttons for soap, a torn shoelace for aspirin, a story for a cigarette. And cigarettes are currency now. You cough less. You smile more. You become visible. And that's dangerous. One day, a boy knocks. He's maybe 10. He whispers, "They took Herr Fuchs. Fuchs sold sugar. His wife sold salt. His daughter? She asked too many questions. All gone. Overnight. No trial. No note. Just vanished." You start wearing duller clothes, walking slower, looking poorer, because thriving looks suspicious. And in Nazi Germany, being resourceful is subversive. You meet a woman who sells information. She's missing 2 fingers and never blinks. She knows when meat shipments arrive. She knows what streets are watched. You pay her with silence. She gives you names. Some of them you recognize. You never speak to them again. The black market teaches you 3 things. Every item is sacred. Every deal is dangerous. Every moment you're not starving, someone is. Eventually, you trade for a bar of chocolate. Real chocolate. Sweet. Smooth. You cry while eating it. Not because it's good, but because it tastes like a world that doesn't exist anymore. Then that night, a knock. You freeze. No one knocks at night. You don't open the door. You just burn your contacts, hide your trades, toss your chocolate wrapper out the window. Because that knock, that's not hunger. That's consequence. You never learned her first name. To you, she was always Frau Mendelssohn, 3rd floor, apartment on the left, always smelled faintly of cinnamon and boiled socks. She never complained. She never raised her voice. She just existed until she didn't. You wake up one morning and her door is open. Wide, inside, silence. No signs of struggle, no broken dishes, no blood, just emptiness. You glance inside, out of habit, guilt. Her tea kettle is still warm. In the hallway, the other neighbours move like it's laundry day. No one talks. No one looks at the door. It's as if silence is a language, and everyone is suddenly fluent. At lunch, the landlady updates the mailbox labels. Where it used to say Mendelssohn, now it says nothing. Just blank tape. You feel sick. You think back. She wore the yellow star, kept to herself, gave you 2 sugar cubes once when you were sick. You thanked her. Now you wonder if that was a mistake. At the grocer's, someone mentions transports. Quickly, quietly, says they're sending them east, to resettlement camps, for labour. You want to ask, where, why, how, but questions have become illegal thoughts. You pass her apartment later that week. It's locked now. The smell of cinnamon is gone, replaced by fresh paint and silence. A boy plays ball in the hallway. It bounces off her door. No one tells him to stop. Then you hear something at work. A joke? Someone says, "Looks like there's more room in the building now." They laugh. You don't, but you smile, because that's safer. You want to scream. You want to write her name on the mailbox in ink so dark it stains history. But instead, you walk home. Quiet, obedient, and later, in the dark, you remember. She gave you sugar, and now she's gone like dust. No one talks about it, because if you say her name, someone might say yours. You used to love radio. The crackle of static, the voices, the music. Now it's a weapon. Your radio is state-issued. It sits on your shelf like a loyal dog that only bites when you speak out of turn. On the back, a warning. Listening to foreign broadcasts is punishable by death. You don't test it. Every morning, the same voice. Deep, precise, confident, like a man who never doubts himself. He doesn't say good morning, he says victory is near, even when the sky is burning and the bread line stretches around corners. The news is always perfect. The Reich is always winning. The Führer is always right. The enemies are always cowards, liars, degenerates. You stop asking what happened. You start asking, what are we allowed to know today? One day, you hear a crackle, a faint accent, a name that isn't German. It lasts 3 seconds before your hand slams the dial, because that wasn't the Reich's broadcast. That was BBC, and someone nearby might have heard it too. You start seeing the posters, loose lip sink ships. Every radio can betray you. Your ears must belong to the Führer. Your ears, your mind, your obedience. You visit a friend, one of the few you think you can trust. Her radio? Missing. She whispers, I sold it. Too loud. You understand. The worst part? Music. They still play it. Polkas, marches, national anthems. Cheerful, relentless. Like dancing in a burning building. You try to remember what music used to feel like. Before it came with rules. Before every note carried a flag. But it's gone. Just static now. At night, you dream of voices from far away, speaking truth. But when you wake, all you hear is the same man again, saying the same lies, in the same tone, to the same silence. And you turn it up. Because it's better to be deaf than dead. You're not unemployed here. Unemployment has been abolished. Not by fixing the economy, but by changing the rules. Everyone works, or else. It starts with a letter. You have been assigned, not offered, not invited, assigned. You are now part of the Reich Labour Service, Reichsarbeitsdienst. Your job? Technically, infrastructure support specialist. Realistically, you shovel gravel outside a munitions factory 12 hours a day. Rain or shine, hunger or exhaustion, they give you a uniform not to protect you, but to own you. Brown shirt, red armband, a cap that doesn't fit. You wear it anyway. Your supervisor is a man with a clipboard and no neck. He doesn't speak. He barks. Faster. Straighter lines. No breaks. You don't ask his name. You don't need it. The work is pointless. Gravel gets moved from one pile to another, then back. You ask someone why, they shrug. It's not about gravel. It's about who does what they're told. You shovel harder. Lunch is a crust of bread and a tin cup of warm water. You eat it like steak. You don't speak. Not because you're tired, but because talking is noticed. And being noticed is fatal. One day, a boy collapses in line. The supervisor steps over him like he's luggage. No one moves. An hour later, the boy is gone. No one knows where or asks. There are quotas. If you don't hit your number, they don't fire you. They reassign you, and no one knows what that means. But everyone knows someone who never came back. You find a rhythm. Breathe. Shovel. Step. Stack. You stop thinking about home, about food, about identity. You're a tool now, and tools don't dream. At night, you stare at your hands, blistered, cracked, covered in grey dust that doesn't wash off. You forget what your old job was, what your old life was. Only the ache remains. You once thought labour was noble. Here, it's a cage. And the harder you work, the more invisible you become. You get another letter. This one doesn't assign you, it invites you. An opportunity to join the National Socialist German Workers' Party. It sounds voluntary, like a club, a suggestion. It's not. You ask someone, do I have to? They don't answer. Just look at you. Long enough to say, don't ask that question out loud again. At the registration hall, the walls are lined with banners, black, white, red. Always red, always bold, always screaming loyalty. A man at the desk doesn't smile. Occupation? You say labourer, he writes, low clearance. He stamps your file. You're now officially a party Mitglied, party member. Congratulations, your silence is no longer enough. You're expected to attend rallies now. Mandatory volunteering with flags, chants, marches, and the required facial expression, fierce joy. One wrong eyebrow could get you flagged or flayed. You memorize slogans. Ein Volk, ein Reich, ein Führer. Deutschland erwache. Der Führer denkt für uns. The Führer thinks for us. You chant them until the syllables feel like toothpicks in your mouth. You don't believe them, but you say them, louder than anyone. You get assigned a political officer, a party man who checks in on your loyalty. He visits your home, unannounced. You serve him stale tea. He sniffs, doesn't drink. He asks you about your neighbours. You say they're quiet. He nods, writes something down. You start collecting newspapers, not to read, to display. People glance at your shelf, see your stack of Völkische Beobachter. They nod, keep walking. You've learned, in Nazi Germany, ideology is decor. You go to a discussion group. It's not a discussion, it's a performance. Everyone agrees with each other harder than the last. You nod so much your neck cramps. You clap too early, they notice. You laugh at the wrong line, they notice. You speak less, they notice. Eventually you stop having opinions, because having none is safer than having the wrong one. You become fluent in the language of echo. But the worst part isn't pretending, it's that, after a while, you forget what you used to believe. You never see them coming. They don't wear uniforms. They don't carry badges. They carry silence, and it weighs more than guns. You hear whispers. Someone from the bakery is gone. Don't ask where Herr Vogel went. Remember that boy who made the joke? Yeah, no one finishes these sentences. They don't have to. The Gestapo doesn't knock. They appear. Midnight, morning, market, doesn't matter. One moment, life. Next moment, file number. You develop new instincts. Never ask questions. Never speak first. Never leave your blinds open. You cross the street when you see someone watching. You memorize your route. You delete footprints with your eyes. Your neighbour, Klaus, used to be loud. He's quiet now. His wife has started cooking extra, just in case. In case of what? No one says. You hear about protective custody. That's what they call it when someone disappears without trial. The word sounds soft. The result isn't, one day, a woman on your tram says, "I miss the old days." That's all. 5 stops later, 2 men escort her off. No screaming, no cuffs. She just goes and doesn't come back. There are files. Everyone knows. The Gestapo writes them. They grow like mold. They hold your voice, your habits, your facial twitches. You dream of them sometimes, papers rustling louder than bombs. Someone reports you. You don't know who. You just get a letter. Report for questioning. You shave. You dress carefully. Not too well. That's suspicious. Not too poorly. That's disrespect. You walk to the office. Hand steady, heart not. The room is grey. The man behind the desk is grey. His questions aren't shouted. They're whispered, like confessions you didn't know you had. You nod, smile, answer. Not too fast, not too slow. You tell the truth. Then twist it, dress it, polish it. You become harmless. He stamps your file. Dismissed. You nod, back out, eyes down. You breathe quietly. You're free. For now. But you know now, the Gestapo doesn't watch everyone. Just enough people so everyone thinks they're next. And in a way, there are you walk past the church you grew up in. The bells still ring, but the sound isn't holy anymore, it's hollow. Inside, the altar is the same, but everything else is different. The crucifix is smaller now, replaced by a larger image, not of Christ, but of the Führer. You remember sermons filled with love, grace, forgiveness. Now it's duty, order, purity. Even the pastor has changed. He used to wear a robe. Now he wears a pin, red, with a swastika. He still says amen, but somehow it sounds like Heil. The pews are full but no one prays. They recite. Not scripture, slogans, Children sing hymns rewritten with political lyrics. Praise the fatherland strong and pure. You mouth along, not because you believe, but because not singing is louder than singing the wrong notes. You hear rumours about confessing priests, men who turn sermons into files, confession into evidence. You stop going, others stop too, but no one says why. They just walk past the church like it's a bakery that ran out of bread. One day, you try to pray, not out loud, just quietly, but the words feel strange in your mouth, like speaking a language you haven't used in years. You ask for safety. You ask for silence. You ask for forgiveness, for surviving this long. You meet a man who still believes, really believes. He meets in basements, whispers psalms, prints verses by hand. You admire him for 5 minutes. Then you step away, because standing near hope in this country is a liability. The regime hasn't banned God, it's just replaced him. And if you disagree, you're un-German. You close your eyes at night, fold your hands. You don't know if you're praying or just pretending, but you whisper anyway. Please, just one more day. It begins with a rumour, a train station in the east. No schedule, no return. Then a whisper. There are camps. Not the kind with fires and songs. The other kind. The kind where people go and don't come back. You don't believe it at first. It's too big, too cruel, too deliberate. But the signs are there. You pass a house with a yellow star painted on the door. A week later, the door is gone. So is the family. The city feels lighter, not in joy, in absence. A man on your tram reads the paper. Headline: Jewish problem will be resolved by year's end. No one flinches. One person nods. You hear terms: evacuation, resettlement, special treatment. They sound clinical, precise, like medical procedures. You realize they're euphemisms for death. You meet someone who worked near a camp. He doesn't say much, just 5 words. The trains never come back. Then he looks down. You never speak again. Factories run night and day, but not all of them make tanks. Some make ash, and you see smoke, from too far away to smell, but not far enough to ignore. You write a letter to no one. You describe what's happening carefully, vaguely. You don't mail it. You burn it, because paper isn't safe anymore. One day, you're handed a clipboard. You work logistics now, shipping manifests. One column reads, units moved. Another, destination, Auschwitz. You want to ask what units means, but you already know, and you sign the page anyway, because that's what survival costs here. People know. Not everything, but enough. Enough to pretend harder, to speak softer, to call absence efficiency. You dream of a knock on your door, not because you're Jewish, but because you are not sure if doing nothing is still a crime. You wake up sweating, and then one day, it hits you. This isn't policy anymore. It's routine. It's not horror. It's procedure. You look around, at the empty street, at the silent mailbox, at the sky that no longer notices the smoke, and you realize you're inside history, but not the kind anyone wants to remember. You're waiting in line for onions, 3 hours deep, knees stiff, nothing left to say to the old man ahead of you or the boy behind. Then he arrives. Not loud, not rushed, just present. A man in uniform. You don't recognize the insignia. Too many stripes, wrong color, but that doesn't matter. He's wearing the uniform, and that's all it takes. Everyone straightens, no whispers, no coughs, just posture and silence. You drop your gaze, just enough to be respectful, not enough to seem evasive. There's a science to surviving this. He doesn't say anything. He just walks past the line, straight to the front, takes 2 onions. No one protests. The shopkeeper doesn't blink. He just nods, stutters, Heil Hitler, and adjusts the scales. You wonder, What would happen if someone said no? Then you realize you'd never find out, because no one will ever. Later you see him again, same uniform, different block. He's not doing anything, just standing, and that's enough. People change direction, mothers clutch children, laughter dies. Even birds seem quieter. You start seeing uniforms everywhere, on trams, in doorways, at bakeries, watching, waiting. Worn by men who may not know your name, but control your fate. Sometimes they're boys, 18, maybe younger, still pimply, still powerful. One day, a man in uniform drops his glove. You pick it up, hand it to him. He doesn't say thank you, just stares. And for a second, you panic. Was that too eager? Too slow? Too familiar? He walks away. You spend the rest of the day trying not to breathe too hard. You pass a mirror. Your shoulders are straighter and your eyes dart faster. You've started behaving like you're being watched, even when you're not, especially when you're not. The uniform doesn't need to speak. It's a language. And you've become fluent in fear. It starts with a look. Too long, too direct, too deliberate. Someone at the back of the bakery line glances at you, then drops their eyes. They cough. Twice. Pause. Once more. You think, was that a signal? You don't cough back. You don't move, but you don't forget. A few days later, you find a slip of paper tucked into your coat. It reads, "The walls have ears, but the wind still whispers." You burn it, then check your pockets for more. Resistance isn't like in the movies. No explosions, no grand speeches, just paper, ink, bread, silence. You hear about a woman who bakes code into crusts, a man who repairs shoes and hides microfilm in the soles, a child who delivers newspapers that don't exist. You start seeing symbols in chalk on lampposts, circles, arrows, a star scratched backward. Nothing dramatic, just enough to say, we're still here. You visit a tailor's shop with no sign. You say the phrase, "Stitching for spring comes early this year." They nod, and for 5 minutes, you feel human again. Inside, you're handed a pamphlet, folded like a prayer, smells like printer ink and fear. It's a list of names, people missing, people remembered. You take it, don't read it yet, because reading is evidence. Instead, you nod, tuck it deep, leave without looking back. That night, your heart pounds louder than your footsteps. You expect a knock. It never comes. You can't tell if that's mercy or delay. You meet another contact at a tram stop. They pass you a book. It's hollow. Inside, a camera. You don't ask what to do with it. They don't tell you. Later, you destroy it. Not out of fear, but because you're not strong enough. Not yet, but you will be. Maybe, because resistance isn't about victory. It's about refusing to disappear. You light a candle in your room. Just for a second, you don't say anything. But for that moment, the silence feels braver. It begins before you notice. A change in the air. Not in temperature, not in breeze, in density. The air feels heavier. Not like rain, like expectation. Like someone holding their breath. And slowly, you start to hear it. Thunder. Except it's not. It doesn't roll. It pulses. Far away, steady, mechanical. A hum that turns your spine to static. You lie in bed wondering, is that the front? Is that thunder? Is that tanks? Windows rattle before storms now. Even when the sky is clear, you start to recognize a sound vocabulary. The sharp pop of a distant explosion. The low groan of masonry cracking. The metallic gasp of rail lines under pressure. The trains move more often. At night. Always west to east. Never the other way. You don't ask what they carry anymore. You already know. A factory nearby shuts down. The rumor is that it was converted. No one says into what, but the chimney never stops smoking. You walk past a cafe and see the tables overturned. No broken glass, no damage, just abandoned. as if someone stood up mid-sentence and never came back. The posters change. More fists, more fire, fewer smiles. You see maps displayed in shop windows, not of Germany, but of Europe, with pins and arrows and blood-red borders. The iron smell is everywhere now, in water, in smoke, in the dirt beneath your fingernails. Your body begins to memorize fear. Not panic, that's loud. This fear is structural. One night you hear a crack in the sky. You don't look. You just go to the cellar. You don't run. You don't pray. You just wait. The explosion doesn't hit your block, but the next morning, the bakery's windows are gone. No fire, just absence. You help sweep the glass. No one speaks. Even the children are quiet. And that's when you realize the war is already here. It just hasn't said your name yet. At first it's a rumor, a whisper passed from ear to ear like contraband. They're coming. Americans, British, bombers. No one knows when, but everyone looks up. Then a sound. Not thunder, not tanks. Something different. A hum, low, layered, endless. It builds like tension in your chest. You run outside. You're not alone. Everyone stands in the street, eyes raised, necks craned, mouths shut, searching the sky like it owes them something. Then you see them. Not planes, shapes. Black against grey. Wings wide like outstretched arms. Dozens, maybe hundreds, maybe more. They move like they know the way. And you realize they're not lost. You are. People cheer. Quietly, hesitantly. One woman raises her hands, then lowers them. Hope, here, is indecent. A man says, they'll liberate us. Another says, they'll kill us first. Neither is wrong. The sirens don't scream yet. They purr, like a warning warming up. You head for the shelter. Your steps are practiced now. In the cellar, no one speaks. Just breathes, waiting for the hum to become a scream. Then it happens. Not to your block, not tonight, but nearby. A crack, a boom, a rumble in the ribs. Dust falls from the ceiling like ash. A child clutches a spoon like a weapon. When you emerge, there's a hole where the post office was. Mailboxes, memories are gone. But the air smells like something new. Smoke, rubble, and revenge. You hear it again the next day, and the next. The hum becomes routine, so do the bodies. But so does the hope. Not loud, not naive, just a spark. Because every time the sky darkens with wings, you think, maybe this time. Then you hear the words you never thought you would. They're winning. You don't believe it, but you want to, so you keep listening. To the hum, to the hope, to the sky. The world ends slowly. Not in fire or screams, but in routine that refuses to die. You still boil water for tea. There's no tea, of course, but the ritual helps. Boil, pour, sip, even if it's just hot rain in a chipped cup. Your neighbour hums lullabies, not to children. She doesn't have any left, just to herself, while she knits holes into socks. The same melody every night. You hear a joke in the ration line. Old, dry, slightly forbidden. The man telling it doesn't laugh. He just repeats it, quietly, as if laughter is too expensive now. There's a woman down the block who makes soup on Sundays. She invites no one, feeds everyone. It smells like onions and memory. You slurp it down like it's 1935. You polish your shoes. Not because anyone cares, not because they're intact, but because it reminds you of mornings before uniforms meant fear, before black leather meant authority. The radio plays a waltz, just once at dusk. You don't dance, but you sway, half a beat behind, like your bones remember the steps better than your brain. Children draw on rubble with chalk. Not symbols, not slogans, just cats and stars and stick people holding hands. You cry, not because it's beautiful, because it's real. Your hands shake when you fold laundry, because folding means order, and order means control. Even if all you can control is the way a sleeve creases, you keep a bar of soap in a drawer, unused. You open the drawer sometimes just to smell it. It smells like before. The postman still comes. No mail, just his coat, his steps, his hat. You nod, he nods. That's all the proof you need that the world still spins. You pass a piano behind a broken wall. The keys are chipped. One plays, one sings, one doesn't respond at all. You sit, you play one note. It's not music, but it's yours. Because in a world built on commands and cruelty, every act of normalcy is an act of defiance. It doesn't happen all at once. Not a bang, not a scream, just a gap. The uniforms vanish first. One day, the corner officer's gone. His booth empty, flag folded. Not even his cigarette butts remain. You think transferred? Then you see more. Barracks empty, checkpoint silent, a flagpole bare. The posters stay up. Victory is near. They look desperate now, like lies that forgot they were lies. People whisper louder now. Names, places, directions. Someone says the Russians took a town to the east. Someone else says the Americans are 10 kilometers from the Rhine. No one knows who to trust, so everyone trusts fear. You walk past party headquarters. Shutters closed, door ajar. Inside, ransacked. Files everywhere, cigarette smoke, coffee still warm. They didn't run, they evaporated. You find a map with pins still stuck in it. Red arrows, blue dots, no explanations. You take it. Why? You don't know. Maybe because you want to understand what went wrong. Maybe because no one else will tell the story. Looting begins. Not by strangers, by neighbors. Desks, radios, bottles, coats. Everyone takes. Not for greed, for insurance. Because the future doesn't accept Reichsmarks anymore. The ration lines swell, then shrink. Not because there's more food, because there's less hope. You hear it in the silence between footfalls. The realization that this is ending. Not the regime, not the propaganda. The illusion? Children stop saluting, teachers stop reciting, workers stop pretending. Even fear feels old now, like a coat that doesn't fit anymore. One night, you pass a schoolhouse. A chalkboard still says, "Tomorrow is a gift to the loyal." You wipe it clean, not for politics, for dignity. Then you hear the word, retreat, on lips, in whispers, behind locked doors. And you understand, they're not just losing land, they're losing control. And soon, they'll lose you. The silence is terrifying. Not because it's loud, but because it isn't. No sirens, no orders, no speeches on the radio. Just wind, and birds, and the creak of an abandoned world. You wake up to whispers. They're here. No names, just they, the other uniforms. The ones from stories, from nightmares, from hopes you buried deep. You step outside. Not far, just to the curb. You see them. Not charging, not shouting. Just walking. Dusty boots, rolled sleeves, helmets that don't glint. One holds a chocolate bar. Another holds a map. No swastikas. Just stars. Stripes. Flags you don't know how to feel about. You don't cheer. You don't cry. You just watch. A woman down the block offers water, her hands shake. A child runs up, touches a soldier's sleeve, then runs away. The soldier laughs. And you realize you haven't heard laughter in weeks. No one tells you what to do. That's the strangest part. No roll call, no slogans, no Heil. Just choice. And what do you do with that? The baker opens early, no bread. Just the door, and a radio playing jazz. Real jazz. Not allowed jazz. You stand in the doorway and cry. You don't know why. The Allied troops move slow. They don't conquer. They occupy. Not like a hand grabbing. More like one holding a wound shut. One gives you a tin of meat. You nod, almost bow. He smiles, says something in English. You don't understand, but you feel it. At night, there are no speeches, just whispers through thin walls. They're dismantling the camps. They found the lists. They're asking questions. You close your eyes. You dream of a courtroom, and you don't know if you're watching or standing on trial. You hear the word liberation, but it lands strangely, because freedom feels like air after drowning. Not a blessing, just breath. And now you must ask, what were you all this time? A bystander? A prisoner? A coward? A survivor? You don't know yet. But you know this. The war is ending, and your story is just beginning. The buildings didn't scream, but the paper did. Stacks of it, files, forms, ledgers. So much paper, it could bury a city. It nearly did. The Allies opened the doors to offices, schools, factories, and behind every desk, every drawer, is documentation. Typed, dated, signed. It's not rumours now. It's proof. You see them sorting the files. Soldiers with gloves, translators with pens. Pages flutter in the wind like dead birds. Someone finds a list. Not names of soldiers, names of the vanished. Next to each, date of transport, destination, status. Most say the same thing. Processed. A soldier hands you a file. Not accusing, just showing. Your name isn't in it, but your street is. So are your neighbours. You read one line again and again. Witnesses report no resistance. It doesn't name names. It doesn't need to. You're there between the lines. At town hall, they post more names. Survivors, not many. And then, collaborators, you recognize faces. Some you liked, some you feared, some looked like you. You're told to write a statement. Not for guilt, not yet. Just for truth. But truth, here, is a slippery thing. Was that day cloudy, or did you just squint from fear? Did you look away, or did you stare too long? You remember Frau Mendelssohn, her kettle, her star. You wonder, would one word from you have changed anything? Then you wonder if someone else is writing about you. The postman's records become evidence. The factory's shipping logs become confession. The scribbled school rosters, suddenly holy. Every scrap of ink says what mouths won't. Some burn their files. Too late. The truth already has duplicates. Carbon copies. Witnesses. Memories. You find a diary. Not yours. A teenager's. Inside. Fear. Hunger. Names. Your street. It ends mid-sentence. You close it carefully, as if she can still feel it. The question now isn't what happened. It's what will we do with it? And deeper, what do we deserve? The paper doesn't scream, but it whispers. And now, you have to listen. You find yourself in a crowd. Not cheering or not protesting, just watching. The square has been turned into a courtroom. Not with gavels or robes, but with rope barriers and spotlights. At the centre, a man you recognise. Herr Bormann, local official, paper pusher. You remember his briefcase, his handshake, how he gave out chocolates on Reich holidays. Today, he's wearing handcuffs. The charges are read, not shouted, just spoken, like facts. Signed transfer orders, facilitated deportations. Knew. That last one hits the hardest. Because you knew too. He denies everything, or tries to. He blames the system, the orders, the war. Then the names come out. Children, teachers, the old woman from the bookshop. His signature is on all their files. You flinch, because the ink matches the stamp on your own ration card. More trials follow. A teacher, a pharmacist, a grocer. One by one, their pasts are unwrapped like bandages. Some plead, some cry, some stare blankly. A few smile. Those are the worst. You ask yourself, would I have spoken up? Then you remember, you didn't. People argue, what is justice? Is prison enough? Is death too much? Someone throws a rock during one of the hearings. It misses, but the sound it makes when it hits the wall satisfies. Rumours spread. about revenge squads, about disappearances, about justice becoming retribution. No one knows where the line is, or if it ever existed. You testify once, not because you're brave, because you were named. You answer questions with facts, then with feelings, then with silence, because eventually there are no good answers, just echoes. You see one man acquitted. He weeps, not for relief, but for what he did or didn't do. You believe him, mostly. You walk home through streets that now have new names. Freedom Boulevard, Remembrance Lane, someone's idea of atonement. But the cobblestones remember. The trials continue, one by one, page by page. Guilt and innocence are sorted like laundry, clean, stained, irredeemable. And through it all, you sit, you watch, you wonder, what will they say about you? The war ends, but the silence doesn't. At first, it's exhaustion. People stop talking not out of shame, but out of emptiness. Too many things said, too many screams heard. The soul has run out of verbs. Then the rebuilding starts. New bricks, new slogans, new schools that teach different history. But the old walls remember, and so do you. You pass familiar faces in the market. No one mentions what they did or didn't do. There are nods, brief smiles, never eye contact that lingers. Because if it does, one of you might ask, "Where were you that night?" And neither wants to answer. Children ask questions, simple ones. What did you do during the war? Were you on the good side? Why didn't anyone stop it? You pause, then say something vague, something safe. Because the truth feels like handing them a glass of broken memory. Monuments go up. Some honor the fallen, some honor the fighters, few honor the vanished. A neighbor hangs a flag again. Not the swastika, but a new one. Still red, still bold. You wonder if it's patriotism or amnesia, or maybe both. You start to notice the gaps. People who won't speak of 1942. Whole families that never mention 1939. Entire blocks that rewrite their stories in passive voice. Mistakes were made. Orders were followed. No one knew, but you did. Didn't you? You have a friend who keeps a box under their bed. Inside, documents, names, clippings. They say they're saving it for later. You both know what that means. There won't be a later. Only layers. You try to forget. Not on purpose, but forgetting is easier than explaining. So you misplace details. You blur faces. You edit yourself. You hear laughter at a cafe. Normal laughter. Joy that isn't haunted. It stings. Because part of you believes joy is something you no longer deserve. One night someone asks casually, "What was it like?" And for a moment, you open your mouth to tell the truth. Then you nod, say, hard, and sip your tea. Because silence is heavy, but explanations are heavier. You tell yourself you survived. But deep down you know, so did the silence. The war ends, but the silence doesn't. At first, it's exhaustion. People stop talking not out of shame, but out of emptiness. Too many things said, too many screams heard. The soul has run out of verbs. Then the rebuilding starts. New bricks, new slogans, new schools that teach different history. But the old walls remember, and so do you. You pass familiar faces in the market. No one mentions what they did or didn't do. There are nods, brief smiles, never eye contact that lingers. Because if it does, one of you might ask, "Where were you that night?" And neither wants to answer. Children ask questions, simple ones. What did you do during the war? Were you on the good side? Why didn't anyone stop it? You pause, then say something vague, something safe. Because the truth feels like handing them a glass of broken memory. Monuments go up. Some honor the fallen, some honor the fighters, few honor the vanished. A neighbor hangs a flag again. Not the swastika, but a new one. Still red, still bold. You wonder if it's patriotism or amnesia, Or maybe both. You start to notice the gaps. People who won't speak of 1942, whole families that never mention 1939, entire blocks that rewrite their stories in passive voice. Mistakes were made. Orders were followed. No one knew. But you did, didn't you? You have a friend who keeps a box under their bed. Inside, documents, names, clippings. They say they're saving it for later. You both know what that means. There won't be a later, only layers. You try to forget. Not on purpose, but forgetting is easier than explaining. So you misplace details. You blur faces. You edit yourself. You hear laughter at a cafe. Normal laughter. Joy that isn't haunted. It stings. Because part of you believes joy is something you no longer deserve. One night someone asks casually, "What was it like?" And for a moment, you open your mouth to tell the truth. Then you nod, say hard, and sip your tea, because silence is heavy, but explanations are heavier. You tell yourself you survived. But deep down you know, so did the silence. You don't recognize yourself anymore. Not at first. The face is the same. Mostly, a little older, a little thinner, eyes that blink slower, like they're afraid of what they'll see. You shave, you wash, you button your shirt. Each task a ritual, not of vanity, but proof. Proof that you're still here. But the mirror doesn't lie. It shows more than reflection. It shows residue of years lived in fear, of words not spoken, of faces you turned away from. You remember being 20. You believed in systems then, in flags, in lines, in crowds that cheered in rhythm. You remember standing among them, clapping, not too loud, not too soft, just enough. Now, you can't even clap for yourself. Some nights, you dream in black and white. Faces flash. Some you betrayed, some you lost, some you never even knew. You wake up unsure if they blame you, or pity you, or worse, forgive you. You meet another survivor, not from the camps, from the country. They say, "I did what I had to do." You nod, so do they. Neither of you knows what that means anymore. A child draws a family tree. Your branch looks normal, but you know what the roots hide, and how many leaves are missing. You start to keep a journal, not for posterity, for penance, but every time the ink touches paper, the words shake. Sometimes you write entire pages. Sometimes you just write, "I was there." The city is brighter now. Shops glow, cars hum, radios sing, but shadows don't leave just because the sun rises. You catch them in corners, behind your eyes, in the mirror. You smile sometimes. You tell jokes. You drink coffee. And then, without warning, you remember something small. A laugh cut short, a knock too soft, a train whistle. And the world goes grey again. You tell yourself you weren't a monster. You weren't a hero either. You were just there. But mirrors don't care about stories. They just show you what's left after the stories are over. And sometimes, they show you someone else. Someone watching, someone waiting, someone asking, "Now what?" You hear it first in the schools. Germany was misled. We were victims too. We didn't know. You sit in the back of the classroom pretending not to listen, but every word pulls at your spine because you remember. Later, it's in the newspapers, articles about recovery, rebirth, rebuilding, photographs of smiling children with clean hands. No mention of trains, no mention of ash, just progress. And slowly, the war becomes history. Not memory. History can be edited, trimmed, framed. You attend a memorial. A plaque reads, "To all lost in the conflict." No name, no reasons, just marble and fog. You stand in front of it and wonder, who did this remember, and who did it forget? At family dinners, someone always says, "It was a different time," as if time made the decisions, not people. You visit a museum. There's a section labelled 1940s. It has a uniform, a ration card, a photo of ruins. You stare at the photo. The rubble looks familiar. You might have stepped over it. But the caption says, Berlin after the bombings. No mention of why it was bombed. A child asks you once, what side were we on? You don't answer, because there were no sides, just degrees of silence. At night, you reread an old journal. Your handwriting is tight, sharp, careful. You were trying to document, but you also erased. You told yourself certain memories weren't important, but now they're the ones you remember most. You meet another survivor. They've written a book. You read it in one night. Half of it is true, half is clean. None of it includes you. You wonder if history will remember you at all. Not your name, just your complicity, your cowardice, your moments of almost courage. And maybe that's the point. History remembers actions, but survival remembers hesitations. One day, someone publishes a list, not of the dead, of the storytellers. It's short, not because few told the truth, but because most never tried. You ask yourself, do I tell my story, or do I let the silence tell it for me? You light a candle, pick up your pen, and whisper, this happened. I was there. I remember. Your grandchild finds a photo, black and white, edges curled, your face, almost smiling. They ask, who is this? You say, me. They ask, where was it taken? You pause, then lie, not because you want to, because the truth feels like poison with a time delay. You're not afraid for yourself anymore. You're afraid for them, but the photo haunts them. They keep it. They search. The internet knows more than you ever confessed, and eventually they return, not with accusations, with questions. Why didn't you say anything? Did you know? Were you like them? You want to cry, you want to scream, but mostly you want to disappear, because now the mirror has split. You see yourself and behind you, them, not ghosts, heirs. You live in a world with new borders, new walls, new fears, different symbols, same impulses, and you see it. The same silence you once wore. They wear too, but they ask, more than you ever did. They read the books, watch the films, light candles in places you forgot existed. One visits a camp, the kind with tours now. They send you a postcard. No words, just an image. A gate, a Phrase, Arbeit macht frei. You place it in a drawer, right next to the medals you never earned. A younger generation marches, not in boots, in sneakers. They chant names you never dared speak. They break silence with volume, and yet they struggle too, with weight they didn't create, with guilt passed down like furniture, heavy, inherited, unassembled. You see it in their eyes. Not shame, not blame, just need. Need to know, need to understand, need to forgive, or refuse to. You try to speak one day. It's hard. Words feel like knives in your mouth, but they listen. And for a moment, the air doesn't choke you, because reckoning isn't confession, it's continuation. It's placing one truth atop another, not to bury but to build. You tell them the hardest part. It wasn't the violence, it was the silence. And they nod, because now they understand. The future inherits more than genes, it inherits ghosts. You think you would. You think you'd be the rebel, the brave one, the one who speaks, who resists, who hides families in the cellar and smuggles names across borders. But here's the truth. You wouldn't survive a day, not because you're weak, not because you're cruel, because you're human. And being human in 1940s Germany was a liability. You wake up to the sound of boots outside your window. Do you look? Or do you pretend it's thunder? You see someone whisper in the street. Do you join them? Or do you cross the road? You hear a knock next door at midnight. Do you open your door too? Or do you hold your breath until morning? You smell smoke that isn't wood. You see lists you weren't supposed to see. You pass empty apartments that were full yesterday. You know. But knowing means choosing, and choices get people killed. You want to say you'd shout, but you'd whisper. You want to say you'd stand up, but you'd sit still. You want to say you'd be remembered, but most people like you weren't. You wouldn't survive a day, not because of the bombs, because of the decisions, the tiny daily betrayals of conscience. You wouldn't survive the ration line, where the butcher looks at you too long, and you know what he knows. You wouldn't survive the paperwork, where a missing stamp means suspicion. You wouldn't survive the silence, that kind that wraps around your throat like a second skin. You wouldn't survive because surviving meant becoming something else, quieter, colder, smaller, meaner, and maybe less alive. You wouldn't survive because you've been raised on the luxury of hindsight. You've memorized heroes and villains. You've drawn lines between good and evil with a ruler. You think the past is a play, and you'd pick the noble role. But history doesn't give scripts, just scars. You wouldn't survive because survival here wasn't about strength. It was about silence. And silence isn't noble. It's necessary. It's currency. It's air. You wouldn't survive a day because you'd ask too many questions, or none at all. Because you'd stand out, or blend in too well. Because you'd wait for the right moment. But in Nazi Germany, there was no right moment. Only now, and now was too late. You wouldn't survive. And that's not an insult. It's a warning. Because history repeats, and the uniforms change, but fear doesn't. And silence always survives, until someone chooses to speak. Would you?